Hello, 1 2 1 2. Right, good morning. Good morning. Right, how we all doing? We okay on this Wednesday morning? Are we all good? Come on, music students, are we all good? All right, okay, so we're just running a little bit later than usual, but I just got a bit of housekeeping to do before I introduce, it would help if I'm using the mic, before I introduce our guests this morning. Okay, so welcome to the session with Jess, Sai, and Owen, okay? They're from Digit Music, and they're going to be talking to you guys about their company and what they do and accessible music and that type of thing, okay? So we hope you enjoy today's session. We want you to get involved with the week as much as possible. We'd love you to share your week with us by posting your photos to your social accounts using hashtag IW22. By tagging Confetti on Instagram and Twitter, you'll be entered into the IW22 photo competition. The best photos will be voted for by you, and the winner will bag a £50 Amazon voucher. There we go. All right. So in case of an emergency, please be aware of the evacuation points, okay? It's just at the back where you came, okay? So if the alarm goes off in an orderly queue, very calmly, we shall leave the room, okay? So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Jess, Sai, and Owen from Digit Music. Round of applause, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing all right. Sorry for the slight delayed start there. So my name's Sai. I'm from Digit Music. This is Jess, who will introduce herself properly shortly, and this is Owen. And we're going to be talking to you kind of about our business, about what we do, and that's making music, commercially releasing music, but also making the kind of music making process more inclusive and accessible to everyone, and what are the benefits to that for everybody kind of in society, really. So just to give you a quick kind of run through, we're going to talk about Composer, which is an instrument that we've designed. We're going to talk about some of the commercial work that we do. Jess is going to speak to you about the work that she does as a performer. And then we've also got a couple of guests joining us. So we've got Adil joining us from Native Instruments, talking about the work that they do over at NI to make their work more accessible. And then we've also got a guy called Daniel from the States who runs a project called Music Not Impossible, which is kind of using wearable haptics to kind of translate audio and create a different experience. And basically kind of throughout this, like, we want to keep it pretty freeform. So if anybody's got any questions, not that I can actually see if anybody's got a hand up, but if somebody just sort of makes themselves known, Jay's going to be around and come and chuck you a microphone. We will sort of have a bit of space for questions at the end as well. But like, we want to, like I say, keep it pretty free and easy. So if you want to ask something, please just kind of make yourselves known and jump in. So I'll be quiet for a moment and hand over to Owen, who's going to sort of start things off.
Thanks, Glenn. How's everyone doing this morning? All right, oh, look at that. It's almost like it was pre-planned. So thanks for inviting us along today. It's actually 17 years since I was a student here myself. So it's nice to come back and see it. It's a lot bigger, it's a lot shinier, and actually I'm going to say it looks a lot better than when I was here as well. So I hope you're enjoying your course. What are you all doing? Can people just shout out? Jay has primed us, but like, what are you guys? Are you technologists? Are you performers? Are you students? Obviously, are you musicians? You class yourself as all together? Just shout out to me what courses you're doing. Music, thank you. Any more descriptive than that? Music with something on the end of it? Performance and songwriting. Have we got anyone that's studying music technology or anything like that in the room? No, tumbleweed comes over. Okay, well that's good because we're actually going to talk to you a lot about technology today and how we use it. But we're going to move on first of all, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview about what the company does. So the umbrella company is called Digit Music, and we are a digital instrument manufacturer, and we are also a creative learning, performance and development company as well. Then we have the other side of the company, which is Digit Sounds, and this is a record label. So we make content for sample warehouses and distribution centres. So things like Splice, does that ring a bell with anyone? Loop masters, we can go on, you know, R loops, producer loops, etc., etc. All of that stuff has to be made by people first of all. So if you're a producer and you're using that as a resource, do, if you don't, because it's just a great way to sketch down ideas. Someone's still got to make all of that content, and so that's where we get involved. We make the content, but we also do music licensing for film, TV, and advertising, and we also write original production work for film and TV as well. Moving on to the next one. So what I want to talk to you about today is what we're doing, but I think to understand the importance of music and everyone participating, we've got to zoom out a little bit and we've got to look at culture. So open question to the floor. What do you think culture is? Just shout some words out. What do you think it is to you? Because it's different to everyone. And I don't believe I'm in a room full of uncultured people either. So what do you think it is? What does it mean to you? Tradition. Yep, that's good. It's about tradition, part of it. What it is to us as a company is we think it's a reflection of values and beliefs, basically. So if you look at culture from any time, the culture of that time is a reflection of what society believed, okay? And as much as you might not think culture affects you, it does, because it actually affects all of these things on the board. They affect all of us in our day-to-day lives, basically. So if we've got a happy culture, the idea being is we've got a happier society. Inclusion breeds happiness. No one likes to be left out of anything in whatever it is that you choose to do, okay? We're just talking about musical inclusion because, you know, that's our bag, that's what we do. But actually, if you zoom out, everyone in society needs to be included in culture because culture belongs to all of us. And if I go back to my other point about if it's a reflection of values and beliefs, what does it say about society's values and beliefs if people are excluded from doing things that they want to do? Again, I go back to our opinion on it. It's about music. What does it say if someone who wants to make music can't make music? So it's important for us to think about that type of thing. And again, just to pin it down, that's why it's important to all of us, okay? If we're including more people in doing things, these four things, which are actually the foundation stones of society and culture, they become better. So we're trying to make a small change in the world through what we know, which is music. But I just want you guys to think about the bigger picture of how what we're doing as an industry, music industry, creative industries, wider industries, how that all pulls together in that sense, okay? So if we go back to this point of people not being included in music making, we have to think about why, okay? And for us, we've worked for a long time in the industry. I've worked as an artist. I've worked as an educator. I've been signed to like major record labels and things like that. But what I've always done throughout my career is I've always tried to impart my passion and knowledge about music to other people. Repeatedly, what I've found and what Sai has found and what Jess will talk about herself is actually the traditional routes into music, they ain't working for a lot of people. You know, you guys in here, you've actually got through that barrier. You've broken through. That looks like a massive number, and it is. 90% of people that start trying to make music quit. So actually, if we break that down, 9 out of 10 people that start to try and make and understand music, they give up. So you guys are the 1 in 10 that got through. But it's hardship. It's difficult. And that's the thing with traditional routes. They don't embody or they don't utilise technology in the way that they can do. So we're basically given a set of instruments and a set of teaching methods that have been around for hundreds of years, and it is hundreds of years, and we're still saying to everyone, there you go, give that a go. Well, it's not going to work for a lot of people, is it? So what that actually means, though, is that for most people, the enjoyment and, importantly, the benefits of music is still locked away. For a lot of you, when you're making music, when you're listening to music, performing music, sharing music, it's not just the music that you're sharing, it's the emotional feeling around it as well that makes you feel good. Music's good for your physical well-being, music's good for your mental health well-being. These are all really important things now. So if we've still got 90% of people that can't access that well-being bit, that's a problem for society. That becomes expensive for society. So we need to start thinking about these things, okay? So, music, so what? Connection, we've talked about that. You guys are all in this room because of music. That's a connection. You know, you're quite likely, if certain people in this room, you might walk past each other in the street and not even give each other the time of day. Yeah? But actually, When you introduce music into the conversation, that becomes a great unifier between us all. I used to do a thing years and years ago called Charity Shop DJ, where we would go into record shops and pull out records and invite audiences to come and curate what they wanted to play. We went down to the House of Commons, invited down, we had an MP and we had someone with completely opposing views to that MP. They shared over a common love of Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, because that was an album that they both loved. They sat and talked about that for 45 minutes. Until we got to that point, they wouldn't even sit in the same room with each other. And that's just my example of music and it being a unifier. You've probably all got your own as well. So it's good for connection. It's good for your health. It's as simple as that. No music, I'm ill, I'm sad, I'm unhappy. Introduce music into the equation, I'm happier. That feeds back into society as well. And if we look at it from an economy point of view, pre-COVID, the music industry only, this is what I'm talking about now, it put in £5.8 billion into the UK economy. If we look at the creative industries, that was £116 billion that it put into the economy. If we look at where we are with the pandemic as well, and how actually now we need connection, we need to rebuild the economy, and we need to improve people's well-being, we've got a simple solution in this room, music. But where the big problem is not everyone can access that at the moment. And that's where we step in as a company and our technology and the way that we use it. We think about using technology as a way of simplifying music. Just because you can't understand theory, just because you're not dexterous enough to play a traditional instrument, doesn't mean that all of that should be locked away from you. Well, I certainly don't believe it does, and I know that these two people stood on the stage with me as well. They don't believe it, and I think if we're honest and I poll this, none of you are going to agree to that, because that's just a crazy mindset to say, well, just because those tools don't work for you means you can't do it. Ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. So what do we choose to do? Well, we choose to keep it simple, okay? So we think about how technology can open up culture, and we think about how digital music creation, and we're in a really golden period at the moment, because up until about 25, 30 years ago, digital music creation didn't exist. It does now. What it actually means is anyone can make music. It doesn't matter what level or ability you're operating at, the benefits that you get from making music is standard across all of us. So whether I'm a virtuoso pianist on stage, playing at the Royal Albert Hall, or whether I'm a kid sat in my bedroom who for the first time is writing a drum loop in Fruity Loops, or I'm in a community music setting and someone's given me an instrument to engage with, that's still good, regardless of what level you're operating at. But people want to take it further. You know, there's a lot of tokenism in what's phrased as accessible music, and that for us is a bit of a bugbear as well. Jess is a professional musician. That's what she does. She teaches with us, she performs, she's signed, all of those things, purely because she just needed the right tools to be able to do that. It's not my creativity that comes out of her, it's her creativity that comes out of her. We've all got it inside us for that reason. So just think about these little things as we're going on, and think about this as you're going about your practice as well. You know, if you end up doing what you guys want to do with your careers, which is working in music, I think we've all got a little bit of a responsibility in thinking, how can we make it more inclusive for everyone? Accessible, inclusive, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. It's about being involved, it's about taking part, and that's really interesting. So that's kind of my little bit of spiel to give you a bit of why we do it. Sai's going to talk it in much, much smaller components now of how do we actually do it. And that brings us on to our first thing, which is the piece of technology that we've designed, called Composer.
There we go. All right, I'll go there. You might not want to sit though, sort of like back in the way, out the way. So
why, are you warning me away from you?
Yeah, no, I thought I was a little bit away in the corner. All right, Sam. So, so as Owen's talking about, like, you know, for us, musical inclusion's important on, you know, from many levels. You know, the human story, that side of it, the economic story as well, you know, the business side of it. But also, you know, for even people that aren't bothered about those two side of things, just having access to everybody being able to make music, everybody having the opportunity, not that everybody will want to, means that we're left with potentially the best music that we could possibly end up with, the more, you know, the most opportunities, etc. So for us, it was really about breaking that down and kind of looking at what are the steps that we can take to work on that. So through the work that we've done previously, working with Jess and also with Adriana Morad here in the audience, we're working on a project called the Able Orchestra, and we kind of came up with a piece of technology that allows you to make music with simple finger gestures. So I'll turn it around here for you. It's like a joystick with 8 buttons on it. And the idea being that this can plug into any piece of software that you're working with. So if you're using Fruity Loops or Ableton or Pro Tools, Logic, whatever it is, it'll plug into those. But it'll also plug into things like GarageBand on an iPad. It'll plug into your phones, you know, whatever it is. Like my background is from live performance, so I've always been kind of playing in various different bands, but doing the electronic side of things. So I work with a traditional orchestra, and I'm in the middle with an electronic setup, taking feeds from that and kind of looping things out and whatnot. And it was always about trying to get the most organic feeling instrument. You know, if you're making electronic music, sometimes you can be shuffled into that box of you're just clicking a few buttons and you've got to run always on the grid, and you're just essentially playing back clips. For us, it was about coming up with an instrument that feels like an instrument that can really sort of interact with things. So this is Composer. And basically what we've got is it's a digital musical instrument. It comes along with an intuitive arrow notation as well. Obviously it's a joystick, so arrows work really nicely to use as a score. And then we've got a learning program that goes alongside that. Now I'm going to have to come out of this one to go into Ableton. Here we go, look at this, seamless. All right, sounds. Yeah, so obviously I'd imagine all of you in this room know Ableton, have used Ableton. I don't know what you use in the work that you do. So obviously it sounds like we've got a mixture here of the kind of technology side and the performance side as well. So I'd imagine for some of the performers you're playing more traditional instruments and doing the kind of recording side. But either way, whichever kind of side of music now you're doing, there's always some kind of technological element in there. So I'll just give you a quick little run through. There we go. So obviously we've just got a kind of Rhodes piano sound on here at the minute. The way that this is set up is that each direction plays a note. So this is just set up in a C major scale at the minute. And we can go up and down the octaves. So we've got, you know, all the way down at the bottom there, and we can sustain things as well. So the idea being that something that you'd have to use, you know, 2 hands and a foot on a piano, you can now do with just 1 finger. So if we turn the chords on here, you can play an E minor there with like a little 7 on the top. You've got A minor up here, you know, and this is just playing a piano sound at the moment, so the Rhodes. But then if I go on to the next sound here, we've got a string that we can be using, and the way that it works, again, it's really about kind of getting something that was dynamic and being able to sort of play as an instrument would be played. So with a string, for instance, if you're bowing a string, it's not worrying too much about the velocity and how hard that you're hitting things, but we've got some element of kind of, being able to raise the expression. So you can see just this 1 finger there. And the idea was when we were designing this that we kind of had this mantra of like 1 finger and 1 click. So the idea being that absolutely every single operation on this can be done by using 1 finger and 1 click. Because by doing that, it increases the amount of people that can use it. Somebody might not be able to double click and press fast. Somebody might not have the use of more than 1 finger. So it means that if we've designed it like that, it means more people can use it. But then what's ended up actually happening is we've created a tool that lots of people do want to use. So, you know, working with, Jess uses this as a tool in her performance, which we'll speak about shortly. But then there's one of the guys who's our tape op, he writes drill, and he uses this. You know, he inputs beats on Fruity Loops, but he's not like super tight with his chords and things. So he uses this now because it means all of the chords are all set up. So if this is in C major, and we've got each of the notes from the scale in there. Let's go to another sound on here. Let's go to what we've got there. So this is like just a little synth type thing. So if that's just a C major scale, each of the chords is going to be correct for the scale. So if I turn chord mode on there, if I press forward, it's going to be, there we go. Perhaps if you go to a sound that's actually got chords on it, not a mono sound. There we go. So I'm back to the Rhodes again. And if I go forward, that's going to be a C major, because the first chord is always major in a major scale. But then if I go to chords 2 and 3, they're both minor. You know, so the way that we talk about it is kind of folding down that full piano. We say an 88 key piano. There's 5 octaves on there, so it's not quite, but we're close enough. But then actually folding down some of the knowledge from the people who can play the piano as well, and putting that in there, so that without the kind of the theoretical knowledge and without the the dexterity, you can still get in and you can get in and perform. So we've got a few other sounds in here that we could go through, but I'm just slightly aware that we're running out of we've got to be relatively tight with time, and we've got a few guests to bring in. Now, I don't know if any of you are booked onto the workshops later on, but we've got a workshop that you just can come and drop in on, and we've got a few of these set up, and they all work together. So you can come and actually just have a little play and have a jam and get involved and start using them. So that is from 1 o'clock, and I don't know whereabouts it is.
Rehearsal room 9.
Rehearsal room 9. And apparently some people have booked, but feel free to just drop in as well. So what we're going to do is we can talk about this in a little bit more detail, but what I would like to do is bring on the first of our guests. So if I let Adil in, because Adil's calling from Native Instruments. Here we go. There we go. This will be seamless. I can tell it's going to work. There we go. Hi, Adil. Can you hear us? Hey, Adil. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Let me just enable my camera so you can see me.
There we
Maybe
go.
hide your
Perfect.
self-view as well, Si.
Yeah, I'll get
I'm
rid.
quit all my applications so I'm not drowning in notifications. I can't see you at the moment, by the way.
Can you not? There we go. How's that?
Lovely.
There we go.
Nice
How you
space.
doing? All right, all right.
Very well, thank you.
Sound. So everybody's behind you. I didn't bring a camera to show you everybody, but we've got a load of students here from music tech and music performance courses here at Confetti. We've just been introducing the guys to Composer and talking about the kind of where we see the importance of accessibility, etc. So we'd like to hand over to you and talk about the work that you've been doing.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So first of all, hello everybody. Real pleasure to be here today. I'm not calling from a prison cell. I'm in the Native Instruments office in London, and my keys for the shutters are over in the other room. Different story. So yeah, really happy to be here today. My name's Adil. I'm a product manager at Native Instruments. I've been here for around about 7 years, and I primarily work on the keyboard line, which is these sorts of things and the bigger ones. I also work on machine software. I work on door integration. I work on MKS. I work on accessibility as well. So those are the sorts of things that I've been doing over my past nearly 7 years here. Si, please tell me if I'm going off in the wrong direction, but my understanding is we're talking here today about sort of democratization of the music industry and trying to create opportunities for more people, trying to kind of reduce any artificial barriers that we have in place to stop people from doing what they want to be doing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that being the case, then there are actually 4 things that I want to touch on today. So accessibility is one of them. That's probably the area that I've been closest to so far. The other is about price points. The other is about learning curves and learning experiences and basically making things easier for everybody. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about community. How long have I got today, Simon?
Yeah, so if 10 minutes would be absolutely grand, and then we can have a couple of questions. Yeah. We're going to finish slightly earlier than we were before, so yeah, if that works
cool.
for you.
I'll do my best to breeze through these.
Nice one.
Yeah, I know Daniel's been speaking today, so I guess he's probably given quite a good overview of accessibility and why it's important.
He's on next, so Owen spoke earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on after you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll introduce the topic and I'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing, but I won't go super deep. Accessibility, loosely speaking, is trying to open up a computer system. It's defined as trying to open up a computer system to anybody, regardless of any impediments or impairments or disabilities that they might have that would impede them from interacting with a conventional or non-accessible system. And typically speaking, you can segment accessibility in one of 4 ways. So you can think about it in terms of visual loss. So that's loss of vision, loss of sight, blindness, visual impairment. That's loss of hearing, so deafness and the spectrum of deafness. That is impediments to motor skills and motor control. It might mean limited motion. It might mean the inability to feel touch. It might mean paralysis or more severe forms of that. And finally, learning and mental health, which again is a very broad bucket and a very broad spectrum. And at Native Instruments, we've primarily been focused on the first of those to date, which is visual. So it's basically trying to get our products in a state where they can be used by somebody who's either hard of sight or totally blind completely. Obviously, you're all familiar with music technology, you're all familiar with music products, and you'll know and understand that first and foremost, we primarily communicate via a visual language. So unfortunately, the status quo is not one that's super suitable, well suited for people with these visual impediments, unfortunately. And our strategy at Native Instruments has been to translate this visual communication, translate this visual language into an oral one. So speaking instead of seeing. If I was better organised, I would be doing a live demo for you right now, but I wasn't, so apologies for that. There's tons and tons of information about this on the net, so rather than me dwelling on it, what I suggest is check out Complete Control. Just YouTube search Complete Control. You'll see loads of demos from people like Andre Louis, who go through the full feature set. They go through how they can get their keyboard to talk to them. They go through how they can get their presets spoken out to them. They go through how he goes through how his parameters are announced to him, and essentially how he's been able to fully unlock content and features that were previously completely inaccessible to him. So yeah, sorry, that's a very brief overview. I do want to speak about a couple of the other sections, but what I would say is do check that out. If you've got any more detailed or deeper questions, feel free to get in touch with me via Sai or via Owen, and I'd be more than happy to speak more about that. Moving on, I want to talk about some of the other areas where we see opportunities for removing barriers. So price points is a really big one. It's not typically thought of as part of accessibility, but it really, really is. So I'll tell you a bit of a story. My journey into music technology started around about 15 odd years ago. I'm 30 at the moment. So kind of middle to early teenage years is when I started really getting into this. And the price point to really properly get yourself a music tech setup so that you can properly make music was in the heavy four figures. You probably needed around about $5,000 to really get started. And there are a few reasons for this. First of all, music technology was still fairly niche back then. It was exclusive and quite catered to pro studios. So we're mainly thinking about professionals that are making music that's looking for airplay, radio play, that kind of thing. It's not really something that a 15-year-old adult does in his back garden studio or in his bedroom. And also, a heck of a lot of computational power was needed back then. Computers weren't super pimped out, if you think back to your Windows XP days. And virtual instruments were only just getting started, and those that were available were expensive to run. So that's my teenage years, 15 years ago. Fast forward to around about 7 years ago when I had first started at Native Instruments, that $5,000 figure had already dropped to around about £1,000. And the primary reason for that was computers becoming more powerful. So home computing becoming more powerful meant that you could actually run many of the things that you'd only find in a studio, like a DAW or like a powerful synthesis environment, something like Reactor. That's now something that can actually run on your home computer. And generally speaking, the trend has been going in that direction since. Computers still continue to get more and more powerful. A company like Apple are pretty much at the cutting edge of this. For anyone that saw the Apple keynote event yesterday, you'll have seen that they've introduced a new line of M1 Ultra processors, which is now 26 times more powerful than the last. So it's pretty wild just how fast this progress is making. And that really does empower companies like Native Instruments to do more and more and put more in the hands of people at home. So where we were sort of 2 or 3 years ago, our flagship line of keyboards and pad controllers was still around about the £500 mark. Our flagship bundles of sounds, so complete bundles, still around about £1,000, which for some people is still a lot of money. You either need to be earning money from music to be able to justify that, or you need to have a good amount of disposable income, which for people with young families, with people who are maybe renting and looking to save for a house, with people who are maybe just not from a privileged financial background, it's a big stretch. So what we did with that is we've been attempting to distill our products. So we've got something like this, which is the M32 keyboard. which comes in at 99 quid. And ultimately, that's offering the same feature set, but in a slightly more focused and reduced manner. So we've taken away the big color screens, we've taken away the light guides, which is what's bumping the price up, but ultimately still allows you to do all of the same things. And what that does is it opens up the world for people who are maybe just that bit more budget conscious. And the same is true of our sound bundles. We've got things like Complete, which are 500 quid all the way up to 1,500, but we're looking at ways to cut those down, maybe by subscription offerings or bundled products. So buy a keyboard, get some sounds with it, and really that's helping people just trying to get started and trying to find their feet and find their way and don't really want to jump in with thousands and thousands to begin with. Moving on, the third topic I want to talk about is the learning curves and the learning experience. So broadly speaking, this is about making products, in particular making software more intuitive and easy to use. So again, if we backtrack right away to the beginning of my journey, we're thinking the mid-2000s here, DAWs in particular were really, really, really tricky to use. They were primarily, the design language was modeled on analog hardware. So you got things like tape decks and your track structure in something like Cubase. Cubase 3 was my first DAW that I used, was modeled on analog gear. In particular, synthesizers as well, they're all modeled on the analog versions. And the kind of prerequisite there is you need to understand how the real thing works in order for you to understand the software. And that's not really helpful for somebody that's getting started, especially if that's not where the interest lies. I'm a guitarist, I'm a guitar player, I'm a songwriter. I'm not really that interested in going super deep on the synth side of things. All I want is to augment my sounds and add more kind of creativity and add more texture to my mixes without having to learn the ins and outs and 101 of analog synthesis. And what we've been trying to do at Native Instruments is just be receptive of that and be open to the fact that people have different goals, and maybe sometimes they don't want to understand everything there is to know. Rather, they've got a goal. Their goal is to augment their arrangements. Their goal is to create certain sounds. So we've been looking at things like parameterization, which is where you take the 1,000 odd parameters of an FM synthesizer, and then you focus those in maybe 8 macros in a layer, which are a bunch of parameters that have a very noticeable effect on sound. So you can tweak using your ears rather than needing to really understand the language. And it allows you as a user to focus on what you find important. In my case, it's the arrangement, it's the textures. And what that does is, whilst it's sort of dumbing down the experience, so to speak, it really doesn't dilute the value of expertise for somebody who's really passionate about it. Say the sound designers, who really do still care about all of the details. And another example of that is play assistance. So we're all musicians here. We obviously know how complex and how deep and how sometimes satisfying things like music theory can be. So I'm particularly passionate about things like harmony and tonality and scales and chords and modes and stuff like that. But I know not everybody else is, and sometimes it's just a job to be done, and sometimes you just want to get on with it. So sometimes maybe you just want to say, I'm in a major key today, do all the work for me, I don't want to think about it. Or sometimes you might want to say, I'm going to use some 7th chords without wanting to work out what all of those 7ths are. So play assistance is basically a layer of cleverness, if you will, that we add on top, which does the thinking for you. So you don't really need to worry about all of the theory or the harmony or the notes that are happening underneath, and you can just focus on the sound and find a sound that you like and get on with it. And really, if your goal is to write songs, and if your goal is to just come out with sounds that you're happy with, that's okay. It's not diluting the passion or it's not diluting the kind of gratification that comes of really doing the graph for somebody like me. I really enjoy this stuff, and it doesn't bother me that these tools are available at my disposal. If anything, it makes it more rewarding. So that's learning curves and learning experience and trying to make things easier to use, which will ultimately benefit everybody. The final thing I want to talk about is community. So community is about bringing together groups of people. Typically, this is done by people that have shared experiences. So if you have, if there's a bunch of people that have been to university together and studied the same course, that's a community. If there are people who make a particular style of music, if there are people who pioneered trap music in the States, that's a community. If there are a bunch of guitarists that use Boss pedals, that's a community. If there are people that are beta testers in Machina on our online forum, that's a community. And we like to encourage people, in particular those groups that have been somewhat underserved by the mainstream or underserved by what's common play. We like trying to bring those together, and we like trying to shine some light on them and give them the prominence and the exposure that they deserve, because they've done a lot of hard work and they're worthy of that recognition. And like I said, common shared experiences is often a major driver behind community. And one example of that is our group, or it's not actually an internal group, it's an external group, Complete Control Access, which is a bunch of the visually impaired folks who have been brought together by their use of complete control. So they're people who typically have had a strong musical background, they've been playing for a long time, but they're impeded by what the technology fails to offer them. So the fact that VSTs typically haven't been accessible, the fact that doors typically haven't been suitable for use by people with visual impairments is unfortunate, but it's what's brought them together. And Complete Control has obviously come about in the past few years. Complete Control has tied together the content, it's tied together the hardware, and it's tied together the doors in a way that can now be used by visually impaired people. And this community has formed, and we find people are regularly discussing the product, discussing questions, they're sharing hints and tips, they're sharing advice and reviews. And that's the sort of thing that we really like to encourage. And it doesn't just stem to, it's not just about things like, it's not just about disability, it's not just about visual impairment. We notice lots of underserved groups across music technology. For the longest time, the typical music technology customer has been the sort of financially comfortable man in their 40s, which excludes an awful lot of people. It excludes women, for starters. It excludes people that may not have access to this sort of capital, so people who maybe have less money to spare. And there are loads and loads and loads of other examples, and that's something that Native Instruments is trying to address via community marketing and community events and online forums and whatnot. So yeah, those are the 4 areas that I wanted to talk about. Accessibility, which was obviously very brief, but there's lots and lots more to say. Pricing, learning curves, learning experience, and community.
Brilliant, nice one. Cheers, Adil. So I know you guys have all got, I believe you've got Native Instruments hardware here at the college that you use. I think you've got like M32s and you've got some of the software and things about. So not to go down a tech question route, but does anybody have any questions for Adil or anything that you'd like to mention? So if not, we can share emails later, as long as that's all right with you, Adil, just in case anything comes up from anybody. No, we're quite quiet this morning. That's all right, not a problem. All right, brilliant. Adil, well, yeah, we'll say bye and thanks very much for joining. And we'll, yeah, I'll, if that's all right with you, I will share your email with the attendees. And then if anybody wants any questions, they can come back. All right, lovely, nice one. Cheers, Adil.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Cheers, Si. Bye bye.
Cheers, bye. All right. Oh, hang on a second. Cancel that. Nobody needs that in their life today. All right, Sam. At least it's been streamed. Sounds right. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on and talk to Jess Fisher, who is here joining us. How do I get rid of this here? There we go. We'll just shuffle that out of the way. See, I told you it would be seamless. All right, perfect. So, Jess, if you would just like to maybe introduce yourself and then give a little bit of an idea on your story. What I've done is kind of outlined, you know, a few of the sort of key things to talk about. So if you just have a little bit of an intro and then we can just have a chat and let the guys know what you've been up to.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Oh, that's loud. Hi everyone, I'm Jess and I work at Digit Music and I am the learning coordinator, but we'll get to that in a bit. I'll just start from kind of the beginning. So I grew up in a very musical family, but the problem was everyone else was being musical. Both my sisters played instruments and one of them sang, but I couldn't join in and it made me feel very isolated. I didn't really feel a part of something that looked really special and looked like they were having a lot of fun. And you know, my sister would often say, oh, here's my guitar, but I just couldn't physically hold it and I couldn't even play a chord. So there was a lot of barriers. And for the longest time, I just thought, okay, music, I'll just listen to it and that's all there is. So then we get to school and in the very beginning, my music education wasn't just going to say it, it wasn't traditional music education. I grew up in a SEND school, which basically meant their view of music education was, if you bash a tambourine, congratulations, you've made music, have a sticker. And it didn't really make a lot of sense to me because I knew mentally I was a lot more capable than just bashing a tambourine and singing along to nursery rhymes. And at the time I was 14. So, you sort of passed that. But luckily we had some people who saw the light. We had a company called Inspire Youth Arts come into our school. And they were just like, okay, no, this isn't good. This really needs to change. These young people have got bright futures ahead of them. What's going on? So we then created a group called the Able Orchestra. Myself and a few others in the audience, we got involved, and through that, we actually had some amazing opportunities. We got to perform at the Royal Albert Hall in London in 2016 for the BBC Proms. Still can't believe we did that. And then we've got to perform with the BBC Philharmonic and do some amazing performances, work with the Halle Orchestra. So it was really during that time my love for music grew. I realised that, I can do this, and not only can I do it, I can understand it, and I'm not just being told I'm good for the sake of being told you're good, because as a disabled person, that is always your fear, that you are just told something because no one wants to hurt your feelings. But luckily that wasn't the case, and around that time, that's when I met Si, and Si had just invented Composer, Control 1 as it was called in the very beginning. And I started using Control 1 / Composer now to sort of start creating my own music. I created a song called Time Stood Still. I went out and performed that. That is actually getting released professionally, which is really exciting because it means all the hard work has paid off. So I'd say, at that time, that's when I sort of moved away from Able Orchestra. I started a lot more mentoring in that area and started off on my solo journey of being an artist. And through that, as well as being an artist, I decided, you know what, I want to give other people the opportunity that I didn't get in the beginning. I want to show people that, hey, you can make music despite of any disability. So then I went to work with Digit and became the learning coordinator, and now I actually get to teach other young people, teach people like yourselves the joys of making music on Composer. And the amazing thing is I'm still learning now, so even though I've sort of come full circle, you can start to learn your theory. I've almost gone backwards, so didn't start traditionally, but now I get to learn as I go, and in some ways I find that really rewarding, because I can say to people, you don't have to have, all the traditional routes. You can just start making music and learn as you go. So that's me.
All right, nice one. Thanks, Jess. Sounds. Does anybody have any questions at all for Jess? So you were quite light on the playing at the Royal Albert Hall. It was sold out and it was online, so it was like 6,500 people in the crowd. So it played way bigger stages than I've ever played. Okay.
Hi, I have a question. And obviously you guys, it's good that you motivate others to do music, and I know it's obviously very rewarding, but I know you're producing a few songs. Obviously we did Supersonic a few years ago, but ever thought to show some examples, upload some songs to people that want to learn music, make them think, oh, cool, I can do that. Like, show them like examples. Have you thought about doing that? I know you showed them, you can do music, but have you like released any like loads or?
Yeah, Jess, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, we do that on a daily basis. So we upload videos to YouTube, giving people tutorials on how to use different software. People can, email us. And recently, obviously, pre-pandemic, there wasn't a lot we could do, so a lot of things was happening online. But now the world's opening up again. We go out and deliver things like this. We talk to people. We put our own work out there for people to say, yep, this is what you can achieve. Me personally, I've just been qualified as a level 3 certified educator on a software called Soundtrap. So that means I can now go out, and if a young person or even someone in the 40s says, I want to make music from the comfort of my own home, I can then equip them to do that in an environment that they feel comfortable with. So yes, we are always making sure we spread this awareness in any way that we can, whether that's through social media or through YouTube videos or through promoting our own work. But yes, we're not shy about showing that there is change in the world and that it's a positive change as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and as we just briefly mentioned as well, she's got the tune that she made, Time Stood Still, was picked up by, I don't know if you've all heard of Clash magazine, but they've got a label that they've set up and they put out a few releases, so it's been picked up for that. So it'll be coming out over the next few months. Just got to get in and do a little re-record and shoot a video. And then, yeah, more, there's definitely loads more things coming out with, yeah, so there'll be hopefully quite a lot of opportunities for people to get involved in things. So, all right, cool. So is there any other questions or anything for Jess? Because what we'll do at this point is we'll introduce in Daniel, because I'm just aware that time's flying through. So we've got a guy, Daniel Belker, joining us from Philadelphia. He's got up nice and early to join us, which is really good of him. So what I will do is do the seamless switch again over to Zoom.
Can we just make sure we've got phones on silent and away, please, folks? Can you put your phones away? Thank you.
There we go. All right, so here comes Daniel. Hey, Daniel, can you hear us? Hello? Yeah. Check one. Daniel, are you there? There we go. We may come back to Daniel. Hold on, I'll leave him. Yeah, we'll know when he's there. He'll shout up and say hello. All right, cool. So let's quickly talk about this. We'll jump seamlessly to this bit now. So we wanted to talk about the sort of creative learning side of what we do, because as Jess kind of alluded to there, like starting off on a non-traditional route to music making doesn't mean that you can't go back to the more traditional routes. You know, again, with that kind of the theoretical side of things and picking up an instrument, you know, I play a few instruments very badly, but I've sort of always played growing up, you know, and it takes some work to get there. And as we pointed out, some people drop out, whereas all of us in this room, like, we're already converted, right? Making music is a wonderful thing. Making music and playing music together is even more special, you know. So people having that opportunity to do that, and there's loads of routes through, you know. Now you don't need to know music theory to bang tunes out. Like, if you think of things like captain chords or whatever that some people use in production, you know, you can skirt around the back route without having to learn all the theory, but still get a good sound. Because, you know, some traditionalists among us may not agree with those things, but actually it's the sound at the end of the day. It's the piece of music that comes out of the other end. The journey to get there isn't necessarily so important. But, you know, what Jess kind of got to, and what, you know, we hope other people that use our technology will, is this kind of gets you in through the front door, and you really enjoy making music, and you can get that satisfaction really quickly. Then you can actually start to go, right, actually, I need to understand what's going on under the hood. And you can then start to go back round and look at the theory, you know, and then start to look at maybe other tools and things that you want to introduce in. But as part of that, we go out and we deliver these kind of creative learning experiences. So this was a project that we ran at a school or a college, in Nottingham last month, I think it was. And it's like a full AV performance where you've got, I think there were, 13 or 14 people performing, and then you've got like the full LED run there, etc. So it's really about kind of having those creative educational experiences that we can help to facilitate, that people haven't necessarily had. But then it's also about skilling up teachers, and in secondary schools you'll get music teachers. In primary schools quite often it's non-specialist teachers. Whereas if you can start to introduce music technology early on, you can start to get people really into that funnel and making music. And then, as we said, there's all of those positive benefits that come out the other end. Hey, is that Daniel? Can I hear you? Am I on mute? Hold on. There we go. Here he is. Hey, Daniel, can you hear us? Daniel. Hey, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, man, how we doing? Wicked. How's it going?
I'm fine, man. How about you guys?
Yes, yeah, we're good. Thank you for joining us so early in the morning. Do you have camera capabilities? If not, I can jump
I do.
Yes.
You have
really.
to?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I do. Here we go. How you doing, man?
Awesome.
Nice, perfect. So we've got a load of we're in a room with a load of students here from Confetti College. We've just been talking about sort of music and accessibility and inclusion, and then obviously we'd like to introduce you and the work that you've been doing. Again, thank you very much for getting up very, very early in the morning to join us. Hugely appreciated. We've got to stop a little bit earlier than we'd thought. So if you've got sort of, between 5 and 10 minutes to explain the work that you guys you've been doing, give these guys a bit of time for questions, but then also we're going to sort of share emails around later. So if people have questions, so let us know if that works for you.
That totally works. So let me just start the timer so I don't get lost. Around 5.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
Nice one. Thanks, man.
Done. All right. So hi everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My great friend Sai, great collaborator with the project. So we started with this project 8 years ago, and the idea was to give the deaf and hard of hearing a better live music experience. But throughout the years, we started noticing that it was not just about the experience for the deaf and hard of hearing, but it was actually an experience for all, which was very much into the likes of the deaf and hard of hearing community, because for them it was not just about the experience, but it was about the social connection and the possibility of being integrated into a larger group than themselves. So it's been a great pleasure to work with this project. It's been 8 years in the making now, as I said. We did a lot of advancements technically. We had a few years ago support from engineering companies who allowed us to take the technology to the level that current is. And we evolved into what is being called now the art of haptics, which is a completely new platform for expression, artistic expression and emotion conveyed through the sense of touch.
Yeah,
and that can be...
Could you, just to butt in, could you go back and just give a sort of, the very first step of what exactly is the technology and what is the project as well? Because I've not even really given an overview of the work that you guys are doing.
I'm sorry. If I didn't,
yeah, sorry,
okay.
No, my bad.
No, not a problem. Yeah, let me give you a little bit of context then. So the technology, the goal is to create a better live music experience for the deaf and hard of hearing, as I said, right? That was the initial goal. So there was several ways of approaching that. The way we do it is, as you can see here, lying on the garment rack over there, a set of wearables that are comprised of a harness, 2 wristbands and 2 ankle bands. It's all completely wireless. And we transmit vibration signals in 24 points of each user's body. So that's the the idea behind the whole integration between, you know, music, vibration, visuals, and that's basically it. Throughout the years we won a few awards, we had celebrity engagements, you know, and we did the Lady Gaga dive bar tour launch with a more primitive prototype. We had the Greta Van Fleet show in Las Vegas at Life is Beautiful when they won the Grammy for Best Rock Album of the Year. It was pretty cool. And now we are becoming a whole new platform, like a new business, a B2B, business to business company, focusing on the experiences, targeting the sense of touch for artistic events, such as orchestras, operas, live concerts in general, music, DJing, and all sorts of connections between, you know, any kind of visuals, music, and the sense of touch. Would you like to?
Yeah, what shows are you allowed to talk about? Because maybe it might be, I know there's a couple of things we can't, but are there a couple of them that you could maybe give an example of where you've used it? Maybe the one you've just been doing out in LA, or if we can talk about the one that we're doing in Philly at the minute.
Absolutely. So a few weeks back, we did a set of tests in LA with the LA Philharmonic Orchestra, with the works of classical composers, you know, Borodin, Rachmaninoff, and Prokofiev, and it was really cool. There was a lot of the specific things they didn't want to hear the actuator sounding, because we can also provide that. We can make people sound not exactly like speakers, more like as synthesizers, but we removed that, and the experience was quite moving. It was great for us. And we are working on an event in May, and Sai is creating one of the vibrotactile pieces. It's going to be three different pieces that are going to be displayed on video, and that's a much more sophisticated approach, where we were able to design previously all of the vibrations that we want the user to be feeling during the event, and then they're going to be displayed to an audience in a theater, watching two classic pieces. With one is a chamber orchestra, one is voice and piano, and the other is choir.
Yeah, nice. So how these work, you've essentially got 23 or 24 addressable points on the body. Each one you can send a different amplitude and a different pitch to. So you can change the volume and the vibration. So you can change the vibration in terms of volume and pitch at each one of these different points. So before, if you ever go to festivals or go to gigs, like it's a huge thing in the deaf and hard of hearing community to go to events, but imagine you're just getting a mono signal at any point. You're just getting one lot of vibration, whereas this technology opens it up so that you can actually start to separate it out and have, you know, bass over here, you've got drums coming up over here, and it just allows for a much fuller experience. And as I say, that's something that Daniel and his team are really opening up now, and we're working with the guys at the Philadelphia Opera. I've been working with the LA Philharmonic. We've got a few festival shows over here in the UK as well, where will come out of the front of house. And that will be split, and there'll be a signal sent to us, and then there'll be a signal sent to the front of house. But it means that each of the individual instruments are then separated across these M&I harnesses to offer. It's not, you know, to help the deaf and hard of hearing community to hear. That's not what it is at all. It's about creating a new experience that translates the audio into vibration, so that you've got like a new experience there that everybody can enjoy together.
Yeah, and we can make movement and textures, right? There's a lot of creative possibilities there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Does anybody have any questions, any thoughts on the haptic side of things?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So if for the hard of hearing, maybe you can feel rhythms, you can feel bass. How do you feel notes?
Yes. Okay, Daniel, do you want to take? Did you hear that?
You know, a melody and notes. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure.
Please?
So you can hear bass, you can hear you can hear rhythm, and you can hear bass and things. But how do you feel like the notes? Like how do you actually feel the melodic or harmonic things that are happening?
So this is like a very complex conversation, very interesting, by the way. But the skin has a very limited frequency range in comparison to the ear, right? Like on a healthy adult, the ear gets usually from 20 to 20,000 hertz, and the skin has a cap at 1,000 hertz. But once you go above, let's say 250, 400 hertz, it starts really hard. It's hard for the skin to discriminate pitches accurately, you know. And one of the requirements of the technology that I put, there should be no learning curve, right? Because for me as an artist as well, it would be very bad if they had to go through a process of learning specific stuff like Braille or sign language or to have an artistic experience. I think that would be a barrier, and that would also shy away from the integration between the deaf and hard of hearing and everyone else, right? So we focused on delivering an experience that is pleasurable and enjoyable for everyone. So because of that, we can feel the pitches. We decoupled the frequency and amplitude, right? So you can have high pitch with low intensity and vice versa. But if you wanna have the sound as a byproduct, so a hearing person can actually hear the vibrating actuators sounding in the room. But for a hard of hearing person to discriminate, like he went from A to, let's say, B flat or something, it's extremely hard. So we actually focused on delivering an experience that is analog. We don't claim to be replacing music by any means. So it's an analog experience that easily correlates with music, but it's not exactly music for the skin. You know, it's something else entirely. That's why we came up with the term, the art of haptics, because actually there are a few other things that the skin does really well. You know, like localization and the texture and different granulation experiences and position in the body. It's very interesting. So we focus on aiming the sense of touch and leveraging, you know, the existing capabilities of our sensory system to enhance the experience and not just be a one-to-one correlation between music, because we don't think that would be, the best experience that we can deliver.
Yeah, nice. Does that answer for you? Perfect.
Yeah, so it's more of a sensory experience, and someone who is able with their hearing, they can also have this experience.
Yes. Yeah. Could you hear that? I'll dive in. Yeah. So when Daniel first sent the stuff over, because I've been working on this stuff now for about a year, and the first thing we did was a demo for the Dune movie. So it was like the trailer, and it was all of the audio around that. And it was like the first time you don't realise how insensitive your skin is compared to somebody that is deaf or hard of hearing that uses that as a primary sense. As somebody who is hearing, that kind of gets lost. When you start to kind of work with it a lot, you start to realise how direct and how intricate you can be. With it, so you can do things on your skin. You know, you'd have to delay the vibration because your ears are so slow that your skin would feel it first if the notes landed together. So you can do it's a new experience, you know. And if you're listening to the audio and you're wearing this stuff and getting a really nicely designed thing, it just completely augments the experience, you know.
Yeah, just a funny, interesting case, Sai, to just. Confirm what you said. In Life is Beautiful, I was approached by a profoundly deaf person after the concert, and he was in tears, and he was super happy. And I was like, what is happening with him? And he said, I had a translator. Unfortunately, I don't speak ASL. So he said, I never understood why people were so excited when at the end of the songs, the drummer was doing like this, you know? Because we take it for granted, like, why is he moving his arms and legs like that? But now I understand it, you know. So it's this connection between music and the sense of touch, but with its own characteristics that makes the experience so powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and at some point, hopefully, you'll get to try them out as well. There's only like, how many have we got here? Like 4 or 5 in Europe at the minute. But we're hoping to, to roll that out further. And there's a few interesting shows and engagements. So we'll be sure to kind of pass around and let you guys know as well. So if there's no more questions for Daniel, I'm going to move on if that's all right, because I'm just aware that time's sort of slipping away. So Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. Cool. Cheers. And chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, bro.
Bye-bye. See you soon, man. All right. There we go. Okay, cool. There we go. So that's not impossible there. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk to you guys about with the remaining sort of 6 or 7 minutes that we've got, this is the other side of the organisation. So as we spoke about, we've got Digit Music, which looks after kind of digital instruments, technology and creative learning. And then we've got Digit Sounds, which is our kind of forward-facing commercial arm. And we make loads of different bits of sample content. Again, all with the view of, you don't have to train for years to be a ridiculous guitarist and have a Neve desk at your house to sound like a really good guitarist who's got a Neve desk. So it's about kind of finding those shortcuts, and we try to, where possible, only really work with the best. So we've got ridiculously good players on each of these. And we've got so from this side of it, this is the kind of sample content side, which is a huge part of the industry these days. Splice is kind of a bit of a powerhouse. They've kind of got a bit of a monopoly on it, but you've got Loop Masters and all these other organisations coming through. How many in this room have used samples or used loops or anything in your work? Yeah? Sounds okay, nice. Quite a lot of you then. Great. Yeah, so it's a really interesting way of getting to something quickly, and also just getting new material in there as well. You don't have to take a guitar loop, drop it in and just use it as is. You can just cut that up and do whatever you want with it. So we put out quite a lot of these either through our own organisation, or we work with a number of other guys. And for us, it's kind of really always about kind of facilitating that route for people. So, for instance, work that Jess might be working on and songs that she's writing, she might want to cut up some of those things, and they end up coming through the sample content side of things and being able to monetize that. And I think as much as music's for the love, of course, yeah, but if you can make it pay as well, it means you can continue doing it. So I think actually looking at these ways of, it really does democratize that money making side of things. You don't have to be sort of completely in the industry with a label behind you and headlining shows to be making money from making music. There are ways to do that through other routes, and one of those is kind of creating sample content and putting that out there. So we've got this side of the label, this label, and we've got, this is the side of the company that we're sort of really busy with, as well as kind of taking the technology out. But as we're in here with you guys today, we wanted to set you up a couple of little codes. So if you go onto our shop, which is digitsounds.com, I should have probably put that on there, shouldn't I? But we've got this code here, Confetti50. This will give you 50% off anything on there. And then, as we're always after feedback on things, if you copy this link down here, so it's a bit.ly link, and it's just Confetti0903. If you go on there, we're not asking for any personal information, no names, no emails, none of that. But if you fill out a form on there and just give us a little bit of feedback, it'll take about 2 seconds. Then you get kind of a free £10 voucher that you can go and just get some free loops and beats and whatnot on there. We've got a load of free stuff up on the site as well. So if you just want to go up there and get some things, then please go ahead and do that. Yeah, and it's always helpful to get feedback, good, bad, indifferent, so it'd be really helpful. So does anybody have any questions on anything? I know Jamie's got a few prepped, if not, but if anybody has any questions for the last couple of minutes before we wrap up, then please let us know. Or Jamie, do your worst.
As our job is done.
You don't want that, mate. You don't want that. Has anyone got any questions, folks, about anything that you've seen today to do with maybe the technology, maybe the journey that our guests have been on through the music industry? Yeah, sure.
So all the kind of products which you spoke about and demonstrated, are these things that we might be able to buy one day? Is it?
Yeah.
And if so, when?
Yeah, okay, sounds. There we go. That's the big question.
Mark.
Yeah, sounds. So these at the minute, these are prototypes. So we've got 30 of these, but we've just completed an investment round and we're going into manufacture. So all things being well, we should have so composer units available to buy within the next 3 months. So they'll be ready to go. So if you just search for Digit Music, Digit Sounds, it'll all come up. So these are going to be available. The audio content is already that's up there. That's good to go. And if anybody's interested in any of the kind of learning side of things, I mean, you're all at a really good college here, so you get great opportunities for that. So it might not be the one for you guys, but if any of you are interested in any of it, please get on it and get in touch. When these come out as well, if people are interested in them, then just drop us a line and say you were here. I'm sure we can do you a nice little deal. So these will be out, and they plug into anything. You know, like I said, it's at the minute you can set it up to do whatever kind of chords and things that you want it to do. So the idea being that if you're, I don't know, a guitarist, but you want to input some keys, then this is going to be a good tool for you. You know, and all the way down to if you're somebody that's never touched music before, then this is a tool for you. You know, I'm taking my new album out live, and I'll have a couple of these on stage with me. I'll still have my keyboards and things that I'd normally take, but I'm going to have a couple of these just because as an interface to play, it's actually quite a really, you know, an intuitive way to play with the joystick. So yeah, they will be available. Thank you.
Any other questions, folks? Oh, yeah.
I think the prototype is really cool, but is it possible that you may modify it, like add more buttons for more options, and you know, like have different things, like you want to have like a piano sound or a guitar sound or a drum sound? Do you think that will like be available if the actual thing like gets you know, if it gets sold, like selling, you know?
Yeah. So we'll remove the if, it's a when. It'll definitely be happening. So yeah, the buttons. So this is the first one. You know, this is the first product we made. And we will keep this one like this. The reason being, it's simple enough that most people can use it. So there's 8 buttons. You only ever use one finger, and you can play the whole thing with one finger. So we'll keep that like that. We've got ideas for a software version of it, and there are actually a couple of advancements for the next product that we'll have on here. Already, though, with this, you can play any type of sound you want. You know, so this doesn't have the sounds inbuilt in it. This has got all of the kind of chord and the musical theory, memory stuff built into it. But we're just plugging it into either native instrument software or, you know, plug it into output software or whatever it is you use. Essentially, it's just a glorified MIDI device. You know, you plug and play into whatever you want, and yeah, you can do deeper programming with it to play whatever sounds that you like. But essentially, if you just go on and select whatever instrument you want to play, you'll be able to play it with this. So yeah, and then watch out for updates. They will be coming, but we need to get the first one out first. That's step one. All right, cool. Anybody else?
More questions?
Hiya. My question's for Jess. So you very, very briefly mentioned the Royal Albert Hall and the BBC proms. Yeah. Amazing. How did you get to that point, and what was that like? It's amazing.
Okay, so thank you. So how did I get to that point? Well, I want to say it was just, if you heard the phrase right people, right timing, and that's literally what it was, you know. We started off in the very beginning it was the iPad Orchestra, and then we turned it into Able Orchestra. And it was just through what we were doing with the company, with Inspire. I think, I'm not really sure how it happened, but from what I remember, was it the BBC got wind of what
they got, yeah,
we were doing?
They found out about the work you guys were doing and asked you to come and play.
So they got wind of what we were doing, and with the BBC proms, we got asked to create a piece alongside the BBC Philharmonic and then the Halle Orchestra, and I believe there was another school from Nottinghamshire, and then we all came together, and at the time, composer wasn't even a thing yet, so we were just using iPads, and then we went to the BBC and performed, and that was amazing. And then with the other performance we've done, then composer was around, and obviously people started to see my journey and the way things are growing, and we carried on with the Able Orchestra, and it we was like moved away from iPads, but we still use them, but really started to embed composer, and then it just became this really simple thing of we can sit with orchestral players and do the exact same thing, but just with an instrument that works for us. And then over time, the orchestral players started to get interested in what we were playing. They started to have a go during lockdown, I worked with 2 of the Halle players, created a song through Zoom over lockdown. The joys of technology, you can do anything these days. And they started to see that actually, just because it looks different to a traditional instrument, it really started to break down those barriers that anyone can play music. So yeah, that's sort of where that all sprung from.
Fab.
Yeah, great. How did you feel going out on stage?
I always say this, for me, it was one of those moments where when you're disabled, you get told no a lot. And for me, it was one of those I told you so moments. To one of those doctors, to one of those people that says, enjoy sitting in your room watching Netflix. I said, no, thank you. And I went out and did something.
Yes. Do you know what? That seems like the perfect statement as well to bring this to a close there as well. So if does anybody have any more questions? Because if not, I think we have sort of run right up to time and potentially a bit over.
Yeah. I mean, just to make you folks aware, so Si, Jess and Owen are going to be in rehearsal room 9, just round the corner, 1 till 4, and they're going to have the equipment out. So just pop along. It's a workshop all afternoon. Yeah, 1 till 4. Just drop in, come and have a go with the equipment. Ask these guys anything, okay? Ask these guys anything. They're in the industry, okay? They've come from the music industry and from an equality, diversity, inclusion, accessibility industry as well, okay? So there's a lot there. There's a lot of experience between the 3 of them. Do you know what I mean? So please swing by, say hello, ask them anything, come use the equipment, okay? But yeah, I want to thank Daniel, Adil, Jess, Owen and Si today from Digit Music. Thank you very much, everyone. Can we have a round of applause?
Nice one. Thank you, everyone.
Let's get that out of the way. So what happened with the taxi? They just didn't turn up?
They rang me at 9:05 and said, we're not coming.
What?
And I said, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
And my mum just went, Jess,
Yeah, I bet.
I know you can talk, but I'm going to talk for you. And she went ballistic.
I bet she did. Yeah, I bet she wasn't happy. Hey, don't stress about it though. It's fine.
Yeah, well, you're here.
Yeah.
So it's a bit shit on their side, isn't it?